On today's show, the Nets come crashing back to earth with an abysmal performance during a loss to the Heat. I'll offer my top takeaways from the game right now.
You are Locked On Nets, your daily Brooklyn Nets podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome in to Locked On Nets right here on the Locked On Podcast Network. Now the #1 sports podcast network. It's your team, the Brooklyn Nets, every single day. I'm Erik Slater, Brooklyn Nets beat reporter for ClutchPoints.com. Thank you for making me your first listen of the day. The show is 100% free on all those great platforms. And on today's episode, I'm going to be recapping the Nets' 106-95 loss to the Miami Heat on Thursday night at Barclays Center. And this was an ugly game, man. Like, this is one of those games, middle of December. We're creeping towards the All-Star break, trade deadline, all that, and it just was not a lot of juice in the arena tonight. And the Nets, the performance they put forth didn't really warrant any juice. There was a lot of Heat fans in there in this one, and the Nets pretty much just struggled offensively and looked abysmal offensively from the jump. They shoot 38 of 98 from the field, 39%, and 11 of 49 from three, 22% from three in this one. And the Nets really haven't seen an opponent or a defense like this Heat defense in this recent stretch. They were 4-2 over these last 6 games. They were obviously riding high, but all 6 of those games had come against sub 500 teams. Now they have a stretch of 6 straight against, above 500 teams. And, Miami has been struggling as of late, at least offensively, but their defense remains one of the best in the league. And this Nets team that is led by, rookie point guards, another point guard like Tyrese Martin, MPJ kind of leading the show with his off-ball movement and off-ball shot making and things along those lines. This is a defense that was really built to neutralize this Nets offense, and they did that on this one. And this was a physical game, man. I mean, it was ugly. This game was the definition of a rock fight. I mean, you talk about a rock fight. This is a game where the refs were letting them play. I mean, Jordy talked about it after the game. He called it a football game. He said he thought the refs did a good job reffing a football game because it wasn't a basketball game, but they called it pretty evenly both ways. But the Heat's defense was physical. It got into the Nets, and this is really where, the Nets' lack of ball handling and on-ball creators shows up, because they've been able to get away with, having Yegor Dillman run the show at point guard, having guys like Tyrese Martin or Ben Surratt run the show, and then having, MPJ's off-ball movement, Noah Clowney's floor space, and some of the other things that they do offensively on the periphery, having that be enough. And against this Heat team, they were really able to get the Nets out of their rhythm offensively and really kind of just throw them for a loop. And if you look at this Nets team, of the guys who played significant minutes, there really wasn't anybody who played well offensively besides Nic Claxton. I mean, MPJ struggled big time in this one. He had 28 points, 10 of 24 from the field and 5 of 14 from three, but a lot of those came at the end of the game. And MPJ was taking some really tough shots in this one, especially in the first half. I thought he was forcing in the first half a little bit. I thought that, the Heat, obviously, they did a good job taking him out of his actions, but I thought the intentionality from MPJ and the Nets as a whole in terms of, cutting their screens off the ball, their screens on the ball, I just thought it wasn't as crisp. And I think, a big part of that is the Heat doing a really good job defensively. But I asked Jordy Fernandez about it after the game, if he was pleased with, the shots that MPJ got and how it kind of looked in that regard, since MPJ is obviously the fulcrum of this offense. And he said that he thought, MPJ took some tough shots. They're shots that he can make, but he didn't think that there was a lot of intentionality about finishing cuts, about, getting himself into positions to get some of those easy buckets that he has, in prior games. And, when the Nets play teams that have good defenses like this, or if Michael Porter Jr. isn't, locked in and crisp as he has been in recent games, or both, they're really going to struggle because they don't have the offense outside of MPJ to make up for this, to make up for his lack of production on nights like this a lot of the time. And I thought that, just from MPJ, I tweeted out in the beginning of the first half that I thought that this was a little bit more of like what we saw in the first few games of the season, where he was really just forcing and chucking a little bit. And sure, MPJ always takes tough shots. He's a tough shot maker. But I'm talking about in the first half, he took some really, really tough shots, like shots where you kind of stop and you're like, okay, that was kind of ridiculous. And he'll hit some of those, he does, but I thought that the process wasn't as great in this one. And with MPJ struggling, you look at some of the guys who are on the ball. I mean, Yegor Dillman struggled big time in this one. He had 14 points, 2 rebounds, 1 assist, 1 turnover, 5 of 18 from the field, and 3 of 12 from 3. He chucked a few shots up at the end of the game when the Nets were trying to come back, but he struggled big time. I mean, from 3 and from 2, Yegor couldn't find his rhythm. And you look at it in this one, I said, this Heat defense is really good. 4th ranked defense in the league, I think, going into this one. And you look at some of the perimeter defenders they have. They had Andrew Wiggins on MPJ. He was just breathing down MPJ's neck the whole time. And then Yegor Dioman gets faced probably one of his toughest tests of the season thus far with Davion Mitchell on the perimeter. And Davion Mitchell was just hounding Yegor in this one. And there were some possessions where Yegor, he literally just couldn't initiate the offense. I mean, he couldn't get any space. There was a possession where he dribbled the ball for nearly 24 seconds, trying to get open, trying to find someone to pass to, and threw up a wild 3. He had another turnover near half court, getting picked almost in the backcourt. So, struggles for Yegor in this one. I do like the aggressiveness in terms of the shots. I thought he was chucking from 3 a little bit, but he got up 18 shots. He got up 12 threes. I mean, that is nice to see. But overall, I think that this is, he struggled, but I do think that it's nice, and this can be a positive for Yegor to get used to the ball pressure of a guy like Davion Mitchell, to get used to playing big minutes in a game like this against a Heat defense of this caliber. And something I liked from Jordi Fernandez in this one was that he didn't bench Yegor down the stretch. I mean, Yegor was struggling in a big way, and in some recent games, in past months, when I think we would have seen Jordi bench Yegor, he kept him in, and he let him play down the stretch of this one. In a game that was like, the Nets weren't going to win, but it was relatively close. Like, it was in single digits with under 5-6 minutes remaining. So I liked that, Jordi stayed with Yegor through some struggles. But outside of that, I mean, Noah Clowney struggled in a huge way in this one. He was 2 of 13 from the field, 0 of 9 from 3. So a really ugly shooting game from Noah that we haven't seen in a while. I mean, a lot of them were good looks from the outside. They just, they didn't go down. They didn't go down for this whole Nets team. They took 49 threes today. They made 11. And I think that some of the offensive process left something to be desired. But on some nights, the shot's just not going to go in. And outside of those guys, I mean, the only guys who I would say really played well offensively were probably Danny Wolf and Jalen Wilson, who actually got some minutes in this one. Danny finished with 8 points on 4 of 11 shooting, but he came in and he had, 5 or 7 points and 4 rebounds or something along those lines in his first stretch of minutes that he got in. And I thought that the ball handling and the on-ball creation, I thought looked really good at points against a really good Miami defense. And he got to the basket. He just missed some easy ones near the rim, but I thought that he was able to create advantages, and he looked comfortable. And Jalen Wilson came in and knocked down some shots. That was nice to see off the bench. But really, it was the Nets defense kept them in this game. And the Nets defense has been kind of a revelation, following that 0-7 start. I mean, in this one, they hold the Heat to 106 points. They hold them to 46% shooting from the field, 32% from 3. They force 14 turnovers. And this isn't a Heat offense that is like a juggernaut or anything. They've been struggling as of late. They didn't have Tyler Hero, but I still think you look at, during that 0-7 start, the Nets had near 129 defensive rating. It was, one of the worst in NBA history, one of the worst for them through a 7-game start in their franchise's history. And you look at since then, they have posted an 113.5 defensive rating over these last 19 games. So 113.5 defensive rating over these last 19 games, that's 14th in the NBA. So they've been in the top half of the NBA for well over a month now in terms of defense. And sure, they benefited from some easy opponents during that stretch, but if you would have told me during that 0-7 start that they would be able to turn it around in over a 19-game stretch directly after that, be in the top half of the NBA defense, I would have told you probably that you were crazy. And I think that, Cam Thomas being out of the lineup, I've gone over that in the past, and then replacing him with Noah Clowney and getting, now Danny Wolf also coming in and just being bigger, more length, I think that has played a big part in it. But also, they're just playing much harder. And I said that I didn't see a way that this Nets defense was going to, improve significantly because I thought that they just didn't have the guys on the ball. And ultimately, I think that they still don't because they played a lot of bad teams during this stretch, but they're playing a lot harder, and Jordi Fernandez has gotten them to buy in a big way. And that has been the reason that they've had a lot of success because this offense, it's been okay. Like, it's been much better than expected, obviously, with MPJ leading the way. But you look at the defense, like during this recent 4-2 stretch over the last 6 games before this, the Nets had the 4th best defense in the NBA during that stretch. And sure, it was bad opponents, but they got torched by some really bad opponents during that 7-game losing streak to start the season. So Jordi Fernandez is getting the Nets to buy in defensively. He's proving me wrong. Some of these Nets guys are proving me wrong, and that was something that kept them in this game, even though the offense obviously didn't allow them to get over the hump. But Nic Claxton, as I said, was probably the only Nets player who you could say had a good game in this one. And Nic Claxton continues to impress, and he did today against some tough competition. So what did I see from him, and what should fans be looking for from him moving forward? Against all that, when I continue Locked On Nets. after a quick break. Guys, nobody knows your money goals better than you. Robinhood puts you in control of your money with tools that work as hard as you do, locking in on every opening, beating your PR, beating it again. Channel that drive into your money. Robinhood puts you in control of your money, trade stocks and ETFs, options, futures, and crypto all on one platform. You can now build and execute your own trades from a desktop with Robinhood's Legends Advanced tools, or take advantage of the new Robinhood Strategies with a tailored portfolio managed by a team of experts. You expect more from yourself, expect more from your money too. Get started today at Robinhood.com/yourmoney. Again, that's Robinhood.com/yourmoney. Your money, your move. Guys, let's be real. No one starts a business for the joy of calculating tax withholdings or managing payroll spreadsheets. That's where Gusto comes in, to take the stress out of payroll, benefits, and HR so you can focus on running your business and supporting your team. Gusto is the all-in-one remote-friendly payroll and HR platform that makes managing your team simple, transparent, and fast. Whether you're hiring, onboarding, or paying employees, Gusto helps you do it all from one place without the hassle or hidden fees. Guys, with Gusto, you get unlimited payroll runs for one monthly price, which means no surprise charges at the end of the month. Gusto's automated tools like offer letters, onboarding materials, and direct deposits save you hours each week. And knowing you can reach certified HR experts anytime gives you real peace of mind. So try Gusto today at gusto.com/LockedOnNBA and get 3 months free when you run your first payroll. That's right, 3 months of free payroll at gusto.com/LockedOnNBA. One more time, that's gusto.com/LockedOnNBA. Coming back from the break, continuing today's Locked On Nets episode, reacting to Brooklyn's 106-95 loss to the Miami Heat at Barclays Center. And I went through a lot of the negatives just now, but Nic Claxton, a major positive from this game. And Nic Claxton continues to have one of the best starts to a season in his career. And this one, I would say, he was the only net who played well, especially offensively. But you look at Claxton, this one, 16 points, 12 rebounds, 8 assists, 2 steals, 3 blocks, 8 of 9 shooting. And Claxton, this just continues kind of a resurgence. I mean, this was much needed for Claxton, and I think for the Nets. I mean, you look at him last season, he really just looked like a shell of himself while battling. He had the hamstring injury, he had a back injury, and he just didn't look like himself physically. And it's been a big turnaround. And in this, this season offensively, I think obviously it's been night and day. This has been the best offensive start of his career. But he started off slow defensively, and since then, he has really turned it around. And I just touched on the Nets' defensive improvement over these last 19 games, being the 14th ranked defense in the NBA. And Nic Claxton has been a big part of that, and he's seen somewhat of a resurgence. You look at it for the season, Clax is averaging 13.4 points, 7.6 rebounds, 4.4 assists, 1.3 blocks, 56.4% shooting. You look at players averaging 13, 7, and 4 on over 55% shooting this season. There's 3 players in the NBA doing that. That's Giannis Antetokounmpo, Nikola Jokic, Nic Claxton. So Clax in some elite company there, and I just think that it's just the motor. It looks night and day compared to last season. I've said it in the past, that Nick doesn't have the luxury to not bring it in terms of motor, in terms of engagement, and still be able to make an impact. He just doesn't have that luxury because obviously, like, he's playing center. He's trying to play down low against a lot of guys who are bigger in terms of mass. They have more, size and physicality and strength on the inside. So if Nick isn't engaged, if he's floating, if he isn't physical, if he isn't explosive in his movements, he's going to get bullied. Like, he just doesn't have that luxury. He needs to be engaged. He needs to sustain that engagement throughout entire games. And for the most part, he's done that this season. And I think a big part of that is the physical aspect of it. Because we talked to Nick at the end of the season last year, and, he didn't want to make excuses, but when we talked to him in the exit interview, he said that the back injury that had been a problem for him dating back to the prior offseason, he received an epidural early in the season. He said at the exit interview that it was still bothering him. And he pledged that he was going to use the offseason to get right, and he was going to come back and he was going to look rejuvenated. And that has been the case. And he has looked extremely rejuvenated in terms of health. I mean, he hasn't missed a game yet this season, and he's playing 30 minutes per night. So for a player who is, supposedly an asset for the Nets in terms of whether to the Nets themselves or whether on the trade market moving forward, the regained health is a big part of that. And obviously, we're only about a third of the way through the season, and he's going to have to continue to do that. But in terms of, if you're going to talk about trade conversations, if you're just going to talk about his value moving forward, the ability for him to come back from his back injury, regain some of the springiness, some of the explosiveness for an extended period, and be healthy and not miss any games, that's huge for him. And I think you just look at the offensive end of the floor in this one. I thought that he looked really good finishing the ball around the rim. I think he was one of the Nets that seemed pretty active and pretty engaged. And then defensively, he was anchoring this Nets defense. And this wasn't necessarily like an easy matchup. Like you look at this this Heat front court, that the Nets were going up against. They have Kel'el Ware, they have Bam Adebayo, and obviously like both of those guys. I mean, Bam struggled in this one. Kel'el Ware had a big game, and Kel'el Ware, man, like he's a player. Like he makes Nic Claxton and Day'Ron Sharpe look tiny out there, and he had a big game. But I think that it was a pretty evenly matched battle between Kel'el Ware and Nic Claxton. And Nic Claxton going up against this level of front court and being able to do the things that he did tonight, I think that that's a welcome sight. And overall, like Nick's play is going to lead into some conversations leading up to the trade deadline. I mean, I did a trade episode recently, and I talked about, obviously, with the page flipping to trade season, thus being past that December 15th date, speculation is going to ramp up for the Nets, especially with some of their impact guys that could help other teams. MPJ is probably the top guy there, but Nic Claxton isn't that far behind him. And there's been some deliberation about whether or not Claxton is going to have value on the trade market. And I'd say that, is he going to have enough value to warrant the Nets parting with him? That very much remains up in the air and to be determined, but he's going to have some value because this is a guy who, as I said, like the numbers that he's averaging, as I said, 13, 7, and 4 and over 55% shooting, being in any stat category alongside Giannis Antetokounmpo and Nikola Jokic as the only guys, like you're doing something right. And I think that the health, should lend itself to some increased interest with him on the trade market. I think the offensive things that he's showing in terms of him being able to really ramp up the aggressiveness as a driver, the way that he's taking care of the ball from an assist to turnover ratio, like the role is going to look a lot different on a lot of contenders. But I think all of that is a positive. And I think that, we lead up to the trade deadline. We're going to have to talk about it because he's a player who I do think is being a floor raiser for this Nets team in terms of the way that he's able to operate the offense as a hub big man, in terms of the thing that he's doing, anchoring the defense defensively in this recent stretch, and just the Nets' overall front court depth. I've spoken about it. You look at them having, MPJ, Clowney, Claxton in the starting front court, and then they have Day'Ron Sharpe and Danny Wolf coming off the bench. That's a lot of depth that probably doesn't need to be there, with some overlap at some positions. And if you have a guy like, Day'Ron Sharpe waiting in the wings, you have a guy like Danny Wolf, obviously, like the conversation between Nick and Day'Ron, the Nets are probably in a position where they should move off of one of those guys. So could that be Nick? His recent play is at least making it so that he's going to have value. I'm not sold that the Nets should trade him, but I do think that they're at least going to have the option because of his rejuvenated health, his rejuvenated physicality, and some of the ways that he's improved, especially on the offensive end of the floor. So another good performance from Nic Claxton, and I think that has been a welcome sight for a Nets team that made a big investment in him, and he is now obviously on a descending contract. Another thing that I think could lend itself to some other teams having interest. But that's all I got on this game. It was pretty forgettable as a game, but we did get some other updates outside of that in terms of Haywood Highsmith, who has been sidelined. When are we potentially going to see him back on the court? And Nolan Troy, who the Nets sent back down to the G League after an NBA call-up when he didn't see that many minutes. So what did Joy DeFernandez have to say about both of those things? I'll get into that when I close out Locked On Nets after a quick break. Guys, ever feel like your money just disappears each month? It happens fast. A few subscriptions here, a few subscriptions there, an impulse buy here, an impulse buy there, and suddenly the numbers in your bank account don't match the numbers in your head. Rocket Money helps you get clarity, track every dollar, and stay in control of your finances, because managing your money shouldn't feel like a second job. Rocket Money does the heavy lifting for you so you can save more and stress less. Guys, Rocket Money finds subscriptions that you forgot you were paying for and helps you clean them up quickly. Seeing all your spending on one dashboard makes it easier to understand where your money is going. I love how Rocket Money automatically builds budgets based on past spending. It keeps you on track without overthinking it, and the bill alerts and spending notifications help you catch small things before they turn into big expenses. So take control of your finances and cancel your unwanted subscriptions with Rocket Money. Go to rocketmoney.com/lockedon. That's rocketmoney.com/lockedon. rocketmoney.com/lockedon. Coming back from the break, closing out today's Locked On Nets episode, and have some injury updates, some rookie updates for you. And Haywood Highsmith, we asked about him because it has been a while since Haywood has had an update. And obviously, Haywood hasn't played because he's been rehabbing back from this knee injury. But it's been kind of a weird deal with Haywood. Obviously, the Nets acquire him in the salary dump alongside a second pick from the Miami Heat this offseason. And he had that meniscus surgery in August. And then we spoke to him at Media Day, and he said that, he was planning to be ready for the start of the regular season. But then the start of the regular season comes around. It comes out that Haywood has had a setback. He has some swelling in that knee. And then I'd say that he's going to have a modified rehab program and be reevaluated in 2 months. Well, we've passed that 2-month point since that update came out. So we asked Jordan Fernandez about it today, and Jordy said that Haywood is in good spirits, that he's been doing on-court work with the Nets coaches, but that he hasn't progressed to doing any 5-on-5 work, any contact work, so to speak. So that would, indicate that Haywood still has a little bit. He has several hurdles that he obviously needs to get over before he can play for this Nets team. And this is a Nets team that the question with Haywood coming back, when the Nets made the trade, the question was Haywood be able to get back on the court to start the season, not rehabilitate, but show that he's healthy. And the Nets could potentially flip him for something at the deadline. And even after this update where he was going to be reevaluated, you thought maybe the Nets would still have a month or so to get him on the court. Maybe they could show something with him. But now, it is December 18th right now, and Haywood is probably at least a couple of weeks away from playing if he hasn't done contact work or 5-on-5 work. And at that point, we're getting into January. You're going to be a month away from the trade deadline. I don't know, what the realistic possibility of him getting into this Nets rotation and showcasing anything to the point where it's really going to make a difference in his trade value. And you talk about the Nets rotation as a whole, there really just isn't room for Haywood Highsmith. I've talked about this with Cam Thomas and him potentially coming back. We're going to get an update about him probably on Sunday. But, with Haywood, there just isn't room in this Nets rotation. The Nets are trying to work in all 5 of these rookie first-round picks. And I didn't say, but Drake Powell exited this Heat game in the first quarter with an ankle injury, and this was Drake's right ankle, and he sprained that right ankle twice early this season. I saw him in the locker room after the game. He didn't have a boot or anything on it. He was walking like a little bit of a limp, but not too bad. So hopefully he avoided a major injury there. But the Nets are trying to work all of these 5 rookie first-round picks into the rotation, and they've had trouble with that. I spoke about that on a recent episode about the trade deadline and how them making some trades could go a long way to freeing up minutes for some of the rookies. But with all of these guys trying to get minutes, because the Nets have all of these veterans already in the rotation, when you talk about a Nic Claxton, a Terrence Mann, an MPJ, a Day'Ron Sharpe, a Tyrese Martin, they just have a lot of guys. And, there isn't room for another one, frankly. So I'm wondering with this Haywood Highsmith situation, could this be similar to what we saw with Bojan Bogdanovic, where the Nets acquired him, he was a salary filler. Haywood's a salary dump. So just both guys that don't really seem like were in their plans. And then you look at Haywood with this, I don't know, if he's ever going to get on the court for this Nets team. It just doesn't seem like it. Could he have some value at the trade deadline? I don't think he has value when the Nets are going to get any draft compensation for him, but could he be a salary filler that a team could talk themselves into and say, look, this is a guy who's played in 35 playoff games. He's played in finals games. He started a ton of games for the Heat over the last few seasons. We take him for nothing pretty much, maybe just as a salary filler or as a sweetener in a deal. And maybe he can get healthy, come back from this meniscus surgery, and he can play during the second half of the season for us. I think that could be a possibility. And I think that is more likely than Haywood, getting back into this rotation and playing for this Nets team. Because if you're not going to have time to showcase him ahead of the trade deadline, it's just there isn't room for him in the rotation. Even if you are going to try to showcase him, I still think there isn't room because I just don't know him playing a month leading up to the trade deadline. I don't know how much he's really going to do for his value. So we'll see how that plays out. But he's a name that we are definitely going to be talking about leading up to the trade deadline. Last thing I want to touch on is Nolan Traore, who had been a story over the last week because Nolan had a really stellar 9-game stretch in the G League where he was averaging, 21 points, 7 assists, over 50% shooting from the field and 50% from 3. And Jordy, the Nets called him up for an NBA opportunity, and you thought that he's going to get an extended audition. He's going to get to, get extended minutes at point guard in the second unit the way that Ben Saraf had. And despite that, Nolan was up for 2 games. He played for 8 or 9 minutes during that Mavericks loss on Friday, and then he played 8 or 9 minutes in garbage time during the loss to the Bucks, and then the Nets send him back down, which I thought was a little interesting because Jordy's whole thing has been earned, not given. That's kind of been the thing that he's been talking about with these rookie guys. And I've said, I feel like Nolan certainly earned an NBA opportunity, and I guess you could say technically he did get one. He played 9 minutes during that Mavericks loss, and then he played 9 minutes in garbage time during the Bucks loss, but not really an NBA opportunity, very limited minutes, and they send him back down. And I asked Jordy before this game tonight about, those limited minutes for Nolan and the decision to send him back down and whether he's going to get an opportunity an extended opportunity in the NBA soon. And this was the quote. I mean, Jordy said, real minutes mean a lot. So I know that 8 to 10 minutes may not seem like a lot, but you can really help a team win during those minutes. Nolan deserved to play because he's done so well with Long Island. He's gotten better every single game, not just the numbers, but with how he was playing. And he deserved an opportunity. That's pretty much what Jordy had to say. And despite that, the Nets sent him down. But Jordy did say after that, he said that, it's just about consistent minutes and consistent games played. And it seems like the Nets just want Nolan to get as many minutes as possible. And I feel like it seems like they feel more comfortable with him doing that in Long Island right now, which I understand because I don't think that Nolan is NBA ready right now. I think in the brief NBA minutes that he has played this season, he's just looked very physically overmatched because he doesn't have the size of a guy like Yegor Dioman or Ben Suraf or obviously Drake Powell. He's just a little bit slighter and doesn't have that same level of athleticism. So I think it's going to be a while before he's ready to play NBA minutes, but I still think that you could probably throw him in there with the second unit and try to see if he can do some things, especially if you're leaving Ben Suraf down with Long Island as the Nets have in these past few games. You can play him, I think a little bit more extended minutes and give him an extended look. And if he struggled in a significant way, then you can send him back down. But he didn't really even get that much of an opportunity here. And it seems like he's going to be with Long Island for a little bit and, get some games and get some extended minutes down there. But I would like to see, in the near future, Nolan come up and get an extended audition or extended opportunity in the NBA. And if it looks ugly, you can send it back down, but at least give him that chance to see, to show what he has, because I do think that he has earned that. I don't think he really got it during these last two games. So that's all I got for you guys today on this Locked On Nets episode. If you guys do not already, make sure to subscribe to Locked On Nets on YouTube and wherever you get your podcasts, whether Apple Podcasts or Spotify. If you enjoy the show, take a second, smash that like button, leave a comment, leave a 5-star review. Anything you do to engage is much appreciated. But I got another episode tomorrow. I'm going to do a Fan Take Friday episode, and the Nets are coming back on Sunday to play the Raptors. So I'll have coverage of all that and more when I'm back tomorrow, talking more Brooklyn Nets basketball.